Hi there! Yeah, it's me again. Sorry about that. As usual. So I recently realized that I've accumulated a respectable pile of books, and that's not all of those books that I've read but never shared my thoughts on, and that's what we are fixing today. You are here for a mix of my absolute best reads of the year and my absolute worst at the same time. So grab a snack, get comfy, and let's dive in. And let's start strong with one of the best books I read this year. This is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Or Ishiguro. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know why it took me so long to pick it up. It's been hanging around on my periphery for like forever. But now I'm really truly glad that I finally did it. The tricky part here is that it's very hard to talk about this book without spoiling anything. But I will try somehow to do that. Our narrator, Kathy, is 31 years old at the beginning of the book, and she is carer for some donors. And obviously in the beginning you have no idea what this means, and this is normal, but reading this and some other things from the page one, you've got a bad feeling brewing somewhere inside of your brain, and then Katie takes us back to her childhood at the mysterious boarding school called Helsham. And I've just realized that I've never pronounced it before out loud. Helsham. I believe it's correct. And slowly, piece by piece, you learn about your world, your friends, your love interest, maybe something about yourself even, all while the book quietly meditates on friendship, on love, how long they can last. The storytelling is beautifully non-linear. It's almost like a stream of consciousness, but rather stream of memories in this case, if I can say so. It jumps between events and the time periods, contradicts herself constantly, and makes it almost impossible to line up the years and events into one straight succession. But that's the thing, it feels real. I don't know about you, but I remember my life the same way. It was after that one thing, but before that other thing, so around that time. And what I loved more is how Ishiguro examines societal injustice through silence and acceptance. I was so used to reading about, fear, rebellious characters fighting against injustice, and that's exciting, sure. But in real life, most people just accept things and live with them. And this book captures that perfectly. And although this book is certainly not about the struggle and confrontation, it also very actively, though not directly I would say, touches on the theme of this kind of social situation and injustice. And as soon as I began to understand what's going on there in this book, as I progressed my reading, it was just impossible to shake off the thoughts like, how can this be? What a nightmare, etc, etc, etc. At the same time, you don't ask direct questions or probe into what's not explained in the book, such as how did this happen, how did they come to this at the end, because this is also part of the same silence. And Kathy, as our main guide to the story, as our eyes of the story, does not ask these questions either, because it is possible to live like that, and they in fact do live like that. And it is very cool. I find it very cool. And the weirdest feeling of all here is that when I finished reading, I was sad. It was sad because the book was over, and as I said, I really enjoyed reading it. But at the same time, I was so relieved to leave this suffocating world. And at the end, I just highly recommend the book to everyone. Next, I read The Convenience Store by the Sea by Sonoko Machida. I spotted this one in the airport bookstore and I just couldn't resist. At the time, I just had finished reading Abroad in Japan that I really enjoyed, and I already talked about this a couple of times on the channel. And the whole atmosphere of Japan was just really appealing to me. So this is I would say this is a short story collection about people connected directly or loosely to one special convenience store, which is apparently near the sea, but I had no impression that it's near the sea from this book. Just like nobody cared about the sea. Come on guys, it's a sea. This store is run by a very unusual manager called Shiba. And you wanna know what's so unusual about him? Well, he's polite, he's handsome and smiles a lot. And that's it. I swear I'm not making this up. Though the book treats it like he's a Marvel superhero, he even has a fan club of elderly ladies who follow him around. And it turns out it was the same when he was at high school. Just with younger fans, presumably. It's not stated here. And I kind of find it all bizarre and even cringy. But alright, let's just accept it as a fact. And the stories themselves are fine. Not all of them even really had much to do with this story itself or even with this manager. Sometimes story is just a background setting. And since it's considered as a cozy reading, these stories are meant to leave you warm and helpful, and even if they touch on heavier topics. It is true to some extent, but nothing here particularly blew me away, and sometimes the character's behavior was just strange. But who knows, these Japanese people, right? I don't know, that was a translation. And besides, I wouldn't say that I felt any special atmosphere, unfortunately, because it could really help me. So overall, I was just left with a mediocre impression, and I think there are much better books on the subject out there. The next book is Eat, Pray, Love, and not the one you thought about. Most likely it's Eat, Pray, Love by Kerrelyn Sparks. And oh, here's where things got fun. I picked up the book purely because of this ridiculous cover and decided to run a fun experiment, like small fun experiment, and it did not disappoint at all. Don't forget to check out the video. I will leave a link in the description where I share the whole plot of this masterpiece, and believe me, it's worth your attention. And now I will just try to briefly summarize my impressions. Like, in short, this book is about vampires, panther shapeshifters, and love. Or other attraction, because I'm honestly not sure about love. During the plot, our main character reconnects with her long-lost sister, learns that vampires and werewolves exist, and meets a ridiculously attractive half-panther man. And together with this man, they travel to find other panthers, face danger, unravel conspiracies, and exchange shocking banter a lot. In general, even though I found a bunch of plot inconsistencies and holes in the book, and the whole experience was a bit cringy, I got a strange pleasure from the process. Obviously, it's not a literally masterpiece, but it was good for clearing my mind and having a laugh. I'm very unlikely to recommend it because there are other much better ways to relax your mind, in my opinion. But I don't regret reading this book. And then, I want to talk about the Apothecary Diaries. Moving on. This is my new great love. I've said already many times that the anime based on this story completely won me over, and so in order to not wait forever for the sequels to be adapted for the screen, as there are only 2 seasons now available, I took matters into my own hands and started reading. This book is set in alternate historical China, and we follow the girl, Mao Mao, the daughter of an apothecary. She is very nice, she's clever and educated, and she, at some point, at the beginning of the book actually, ends up as a servant in the emperor's palace. At the beginning she just tries to hide her intelligence and just finish her contract and leave the palace. That's it. But her curiosity keeps pulling her into intrigue. She catches an attention of some very interesting people, and begins from time to time to solve some mysteries all over the palace grounds. This book is charming, funny, occasionally sad, but absolutely delightful. This is 10 out of 10, and I'm already so obsessed. Next, I wanted to talk about the book named Call It What You Want by Alissa DeRogatis. And technically, I DNF'd this one, but I read more than a half of the book, so I will count it here, and I will count it as a worst read of this year for me. To be honest, it's very unusual for me not to finish books, because in general, I still want to know what this book was about, and here I kind of still want to know what this book was about, because I still have a question about the concept, but it was so hard to finish. It was almost impossible to finish the book, so I ended up not finishing it. And by the way, I also read this wonderful book as a part of an experiment, and you can find the link in the description too. So basically this is a story about the relationship between the boy and the girl, but they have a lot of problems because the boy is afraid to call things by their proper names, and that's where the title comes from, I guess. So yeah, and he's afraid to call things by their proper names, and he's afraid to declare them as a couple. And for some reason, the girl pulls up with all of this. She's sad constantly and struggling, but continue to do this. And it's also about parties, drinking, and Uber rides. Overall, I strongly recommend against reading this book, even if you are familiar with this situation and you just want to torture yourself or something. Because everything about the book is bad, or like almost everything. Because as I already said in my first video about the book, it could be the concepts that they are in a situation like this. And this concept is kind of good because a lot of people are in a situation like this, but it's so hard to finish, as I said, because of other reasons. First problem for me is that there is not a lot here. And I think, well, alright, we're not reading the adventure book. It's not so important to have a coherent plot, right? Yes, but here everything is described in jumps between, like, from one party to another party. But the problem is nothing happens on those parties too. And it's not even clear why they are described at all. Well, technically they're not even described. They just exist as effects. Because characters usually just go there, and then you go home in the next page. And that's the whole book consists of those rides to and from parties. And apart from the parties, there are a lot of other pointless scenes. Like, I find all of the guys' POV chapters as pointless, like in my opinion. And it's very clear from them that even author herself didn't know what to write in them, because they're usually like 2-3 pages long, those chapters. And for the, I would say, 10 girls chapters, girls PRE chapters, there is 1 guys chapter. Then again, 10 girls PRE chapters, 1 guy's chapter. Why? You can easily cut them off and nothing will change. And to top it all off, this book is terribly edited on the sentence level. I've never seen anything like it before. Just the same sentences repeated twice, one after another, couple of times. Honestly, I really want to support indie authors, because I understand how hard it is to promote your book. But when you pay money and get something like this, you really lose all the desire to do so. Well, all in all, that was a bad experience and it's not recommended to anyone. And let's talk about something better, in my opinion. The book I'm Not Jessica Chen by Liang. I feel like we have an Asia theme lingering here during all this wrap up. And knowing what's next after the book, that's like 100%. But I digressed. With the book, I finally got around to reading something from my yearly TBR, and I'm so happy about this because it's not moving. It's not moving at all. But what have I expected from myself, right? And it made my recent flights much more enjoyable. This is a story about the schoolgirl Chen, not Jessica, Chen, who felt like an outsider her whole life compared to her cousin Jessica, but actually to a lot of other people, but mainly to this cousin, because Jessica was perfect in every way possible. She did a lot of things successfully. She had a lot of projects and completed them successfully. She got straight A's, took on a lot of other extra activities at school, participated in competitions and won them every time, and on top of that she was beautiful. And then one day Chen makes a wish on a shooting star to become Jessica, and this wish comes true magically somehow. I don't know, it's not explained here and we don't need an explanation. Jenna is naturally overjoyed. She's now the coolest girl in the school, right? But it's not so simple, as you may understand already, right? First, we all know perfectly that no achievement comes easily and there's always a price to pay. And secondly, everyone around her begins to gradually forget that Chenna never existed in this world, even her parents, which is the saddest part of it. It's not like they swapped their bodies, no. Chenna just took over Jessica's body and Chenna stopped existed physically, and I guess Jessica stopped existed mentally as a person. I like this book. It talks a lot about valuing yourself instead of constantly comparing yourself to others, which is cool things to talk about. It's not repetitive because it's still important to realize this. I also like the take on the fact that we tend to forget things that are not important to us, even though those things might have been our greatest achievements in this life. But there is somebody else who looked at us and noticed that, and they remember it and compare it themselves to us, or just remember it as a fact, as a good fact about us. That happens much more than we might think. And in general, in addition to this main story, there's also a romantic plot line, which I found a great addition to the main plot. It didn't stood out as something unimportant and added just for selling point. And also there is a detective story because someone starts leaving threatening notes to Jessica, were to Jenna herself in the guise of Jessica. That's the thing to discover, which was also fascinating to read. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I couldn't say that it's like a 5-star reading for me, but really enjoyed it. And let's end it in something really good and positive. I read 3 volumes of Spy Family. And you can already see how happy I am that I have done this. And as usual, it was funny, entertaining, with lots of funny again faces and situations and jokes, and Aya is my absolute favorite currently in this entire world. And this, in my opinion, is a good way to relax your brain, as it's not like complicated literature and it's very funny to read. So yes, I definitely recommend it to everyone. Well, that's all from me. Finally finished it. Be sure to share your recent reads in the comments. Also write everything you think about the books I read. Write actually whatever you want in your shopping list. I don't care. Use my commentary section as whatever you want. And we will see each other as usual in the next video. Bye!